Stop what you are doing, not metaphorically. Actually stop. Put down whatever is in your hand. Let your shoulders drop. Take one slow breath. Good. Because what I am about to share with you cannot be received by a distracted mind. It requires stillness. It requires your full presence. And if you give it that, if you stay with me for the next 40 minutes, I promise you this, you will not see reality the same way again. Not because I'm going to tell you something shocking, but because I'm going to remind you of something you already know, something that has always been true, something you have sensed your entire life, but could never quite put into words. You have felt it in moments of deep silence, in the space between thoughts, in the sudden clarity that comes after grief, or in the strange expanded feeling that sometimes arrives at dawn, before the mind begins its ordinary activity. That feeling, that sense of something vast and quiet underneath the surface of ordinary experience, is not your imagination. It is not wishful thinking. It is contact with what reality actually is, beneath the map you were given. So take another breath and let everything else fall away, because this conversation is the most important one you will have today. In the next 40 minutes, we are not just going to talk about reality. We are going to look directly at it, together. We are going to examine the assumptions that most human beings carry their entire lives, without ever questioning them. Assumptions about what is real, what is possible, what you are. We are going to draw on the insights of quantum physics, ancient philosophy, and the direct reports of mystics across every tradition and every century. People who looked at reality more carefully than most of us ever do, and reported back what they found. What they found was consistent across cultures separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, pointing again and again toward the same extraordinary recognition. And by the end of this, something will have shifted, not in the world around you, in the lens through which you see it. Are you ready? Then let us begin. From the moment you were born, you were handed a map of reality. This map told you that objects are solid, that time moves in one direction, that you are separate from the world around you, that consciousness is produced by the brain, that when the body dies, you end. This map was not the result of your own investigation. It was handed to you by a culture, a language, an education system, a set of assumptions so deeply embedded in the fabric of ordinary life that most people never think to question them. And this is entirely understandable. The map works well enough for ordinary purposes. It allows you to navigate traffic, pay bills, hold conversations, build relationships and careers and families. For the purposes of ordinary life, the map is functional. But here is what the map cannot do. It cannot tell you what you actually are. It cannot explain why there is subjective experience at all, why it feels like something to be you, rather than nothing. It cannot account for the mystical experiences that people across every culture and every century have reported. Experiences of unity, of boundlessness, of contact with something infinite. It cannot explain the near-death experiences of people who have been clinically dead and returned with detailed reports of experiences that should have been impossible. Given the state of their brains, the map has edges, and beyond those edges is the territory. Here is the first thing I want you to consider tonight. A map is not the territory. The map of reality that you were given is not reality itself. It is a model, a representation, a simplification, and like all models, it leaves things out. Consider this. A dog perceives the world primarily through smell. Its map of reality is dominated by an olfactory landscape so rich and detailed that it might as well be a different universe from the one you inhabit. A dog can smell where you have been, who you have spoken to, what you ate 3 days ago, what you are feeling right now, with a precision that no human technology can match. Its experience of reality, the texture of it, the richness of it, is built primarily from smell. And the visual world, which is so central to your experience, is comparatively dim and peripheral for the dog. A bat navigates by echolocation. It experiences space as a web of returning sound. A three-dimensional map of the world built entirely from echoes. For the bat, space is not something seen. It is something heard. The darkness that would be impenetrable to you is as navigable for the bat as a lit corridor. A mantis shrimp has 16 types of color receptors. Compared to your 3, it sees colors that you literally cannot imagine. Colors that have no name in any human language, because no human being has ever perceived them. The universe that the mantis shrimp inhabits is visually richer by orders of magnitude than anything available to human perception. Each of these creatures is perceiving the same physical world, the same photons, the same sound waves, the same chemical molecules, and each of them is living in a completely different reality. Now ask yourself, what is the human nervous system leaving out? What frequencies? What dimensions? What layers of reality are passing through you right now, completely unregistered by your senses? Scientists estimate that the human brain processes approximately 11 million bits of information per second, but is consciously aware of only about 50 of them. 50 bits out of 11 million. The rest is filtered, suppressed, edited out before it ever reaches your conscious awareness. You're not seeing reality. You're seeing a tiny, highly edited, radically simplified version of reality that your nervous system has constructed based on what it has learned to consider relevant. The ancient teachers had an answer to this question, an answer far more radical than anything modern science has yet been willing to propose. They said reality is not what it appears to be, not just at the edges, not just in exotic quantum experiments, but at the very center of ordinary experience. The world you think you are seeing is a construction, and what lies behind that construction is something your ordinary mind was not designed to perceive. In the early 20th century, a group of physicists set out to understand the fundamental nature of matter. They expected to find the ultimate building blocks of reality. Small, solid, predictable particles, behaving according to fixed and deterministic laws. The great dream of classical physics was to describe a universe that ran like clockwork. A universe in which, if you knew the position and velocity of every particle, you could predict the future with perfect accuracy. What they found instead shook the foundations of everything they thought they knew. At the quantum level, reality does not behave the way it does at the scale of ordinary experience. Particles do not have definite positions until they are observed. This is not a limitation of our measuring instruments. This is not because the particle is somewhere and we just cannot find it. The particle genuinely, demonstrably, does not have a position. Until a measurement is made, it exists in superposition, in multiple states simultaneously, until the moment of measurement collapses it into a single, definite state. This was demonstrated in the double-slit experiment, one of the most famous and most repeated experiments in the history of physics. When particles are fired at a barrier with two slits, and no one is watching to see which slit they go through, they behave like waves, passing through both slits simultaneously and creating an interference pattern on the detector screen behind. But when a detector is placed at the slits to observe which one the particle goes through, the interference pattern disappears. The particle suddenly behaves like a particle, going through one slit or the other. Not both. The act of observation changes the behavior of the particle. The presence of a conscious observer literally changes what the particle does. This experiment has been repeated thousands of times, with electrons, photons, atoms, and even molecules, always with the same result. Observation collapses the wave function. Consciousness participates in the creation of physical reality. Think about what that means. Before you look at a particle, it is not in any particular place. It exists as a cloud of possibilities, a wave of probability spread across space. And the moment you look, the moment consciousness engages with it, it becomes real. It collapses into a definite location. Two particles can become entangled, connected in such a way that measuring one instantly affects the other, regardless of the distance between them, across a room, across a planet, across a galaxy, instantaneously, faster than light, which according to Einstein's theory of relativity should be impossible. Nothing can travel faster than light, and yet the influence between entangled particles is instantaneous. Not fast, not very fast, instantaneous. This phenomenon, called quantum non-locality, has been experimentally verified multiple times, most famously in the experiments of physicist John Bell, and subsequently in experiments conducted around the world. It is not debated, it is established fact. The universe is non-local. What happens here can instantaneously affect what happens there, without any signal travelling between the two locations. Werner Heisenberg, one of the founders of quantum mechanics, wrote, "The atoms or elementary particles themselves are not real. They form a world of potentialities or possibilities, rather than one of things or facts, not real, the building blocks of matter." According to the physicist who discovered their behaviour, are not real in the way we think of real. Erwin Schrödinger, another founder of quantum mechanics, wrote, "The total number of minds in the universe is one. One mind, not many minds inhabiting one universe. One mind appearing as many." These are not the words of mystics or philosophers. These are the words of the men who built the bombs, the lasers, the computers, who laid the technical foundations of the modern world. And they were pointing uncomfortably, reluctantly, inevitably toward a conclusion that looks very much like what the mystics have been saying for thousands of years. Consciousness is not a product of matter. Consciousness may be the very medium in which matter appears. There is a word in Sanskrit that points at the central insight of the Vedic tradition. The word is Maya. It is usually translated as illusion. But this translation is misleading. Maya does not mean that the world around you is not real. It means that the world around you is not what it appears to be. Specifically, it means that the apparent separateness of things is a construction, an overlay, a story that the mind tells about reality. Rather than reality itself, at the deepest level, the Vedic teachers said there is only one thing. They called it Brahman, infinite, undivided, self-aware consciousness. And everything that appears to be separate, every person, every object, every thought, every galaxy, is Brahman appearing to itself in a particular form, the way the ocean appears in the form of waves, without ever ceasing to be the ocean, including you, especially you, right now. As you listen to these words, there is awareness happening. Something is aware of the sounds entering your ears. Something is aware of the thoughts arising in response. Something is aware of the feeling in your body as you listen. Now, what is that awareness? Where does it come from? Where are its edges? Can you find the boundary of your awareness? The place where it ends and something else begins? Try. Not with your thoughts, but with direct attention. Look for the edge of awareness. Look for the place where your consciousness stops. And something else begins. You will find that you cannot find it, not because your awareness is very large, though it may be, but because awareness has no edges. It is not located anywhere in particular. It is simply present, always, silently, without effort. This is what the Vedic teachers were pointing at. This awareness, this simple, present, edgeless awareness, is what you actually are. Not the thoughts, not the feelings, not the story of your life. The awareness in which all of that appears. Now let us look at another aspect of reality. That is far stranger than ordinary experience suggests. Time. We experience time as a river, flowing in one direction, from past through present into future. This experience is so constant, so universal, so utterly taken for granted. That questioning, it feels almost absurd. And yet, physics tells a very different story. Einstein's theory of special relativity demonstrated that time is not absolute. It does not flow at the same rate for all observers. It flows at different rates, depending on speed and gravity. A clock on a fast-moving spacecraft ticks slower than a clock on Earth. This is not a theoretical prediction. It has been measured directly, using atomic clocks on satellites and aircraft. The clocks on the GPS satellites orbiting Earth must be corrected for relativistic time dilation, or the navigation systems would accumulate errors of miles per day. Time dilation is not a thought experiment. It is an engineering reality. Einstein himself said, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Only a stubbornly persistent illusion. The Buddhist tradition teaches that the past is memory, the future is imagination, and the present moment, this moment, now, is the only thing that actually exists. The past is a thought arising now. The future is a thought arising now. There is only this, only now, and in this now. In this single, eternal, ever-present moment, everything that exists is contained. Imagine the universe as an infinite ocean. Before anything existed, before matter, before energy, before space or time, there was this ocean, infinite, undivided, aware not of anything in particular, but simply aware, Consciousness without an object, presence without content, being without form. At some point, this ocean began to move. It formed waves. Each wave is distinct. Each wave has its own shape, its own pattern, its own moment of arising and passing. But each wave is made entirely of ocean. There is no part of the wave that is not ocean. The crest of the wave, the trough, the foam at the edge, all of it is ocean, temporarily taking the form of a wave. And each wave, at its deepest level, is the ocean itself, not a piece of the ocean, not a portion of the ocean fully present in the form of a wave. You are a wave. Your body, your thoughts, your personality, your entire life story. These are the shape of the wave. They are real. They are the particular, unrepeatable, extraordinary form that the ocean is taking in this moment, in this place, through this life. But what you are at the deepest level, the awareness that is receiving these words right now, that is the ocean. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you. You are not a product of consciousness. You are consciousness, temporarily wearing the costume of a human being, temporarily localized, temporarily individuated, temporarily experiencing itself through the lens of a particular body, in a particular place, at a particular moment in time. Your joy is the cosmos experiencing joy. Your grief is the cosmos experiencing grief. Your moments of sudden clarity, of inexplicable beauty, of love that seems too large to be contained in a single body. These are the ocean, moving through the wave. And when this body is done, when this wave completes its journey across the surface of the ocean, the awareness that you are does not end. It has nowhere to go, because it was never located in the wave to begin with. It simply recognizes itself, recognizes what it always was, the infinite, the undivided, the eternal. Tonight, before you sleep, find a still place, sit comfortably, close your eyes, take a few slow breaths, and allow the busyness of the day to settle. And instead of trying to meditate, instead of trying to quiet the mind or focus on the breath, instead of trying to achieve any particular state, simply rest as awareness. Notice that right now, without any effort, there is awareness happening. You did not create this awareness. You cannot turn it off. It is simply here. Don't try to be aware. You already are. Don't try to find awareness. You are looking from it. Just rest in that. Let thoughts come and go without following them, without pushing them away. Just noticing that they arise and pass within an awareness that does not arise and pass. Let sounds come and go. Let feelings come and go. Let the entire parade of experience move through. And simply notice that through all of it, the awareness remains unchanged, untouched, present, not affected by what passes through it. The way the sky is not affected by the clouds that move through it. The clouds are real, the weather is real, but the sky, the vast open space in which all weather occurs, is untouched. You are the sky, you are not the weather. This is not a technique. This is a recognition of what has always already been true. Do this for 10 minutes and notice what happens in the days that follow. Notice how the world looks when you move through it as awareness, rather than as a separate self defended against it. Notice how fear changes when you recognize that what you are cannot be threatened. Notice how relationships change when you see that the awareness in the other person is the same awareness that is looking out through your eyes. Notice how the world itself changes. When you stop fighting against it and begin to recognize it as the same ocean you are made of. If something shifted for you tonight, subscribe, because this is only the beginning. There is so much more to uncover, so much more to remember, so much more to recognize. We are going to go deeper into the ancient teachings, into science, into the direct practices that open these dimensions of experience. Until next time, be still, rest as what you are, and remember, the reality you are looking for is the reality you are looking from. It was never anywhere else. It will never be anywhere else. It is here. It is now. It is you. There is something else I want to explore with you tonight. Something that science is only beginning to take seriously, but that the ancient traditions understood deeply. The relationship between consciousness and healing. For most of the 20th century, medicine operated under a strict separation between mind and body. The body was a machine, consciousness was a byproduct, and illness was a malfunction of the machine, to be corrected through physical intervention, drugs, surgery, radiation. This model has produced extraordinary results in many domains: infectious disease, trauma surgery, acute care. The achievements of modern medicine are genuinely remarkable, but the model has limits, and those limits become visible when you look at phenomena that the model cannot explain. The placebo effect. A patient is given a sugar pill, told it is a powerful pain medication, and their pain decreases, not because they imagine the decrease, because their brain actually released endorphins, the body's natural painkillers, in response to the belief that relief was coming. The belief changed the biochemistry. The mind changed the body. This is not controversial. It is one of the most robust and replicated findings in medical research. The placebo effect is so powerful and so consistent that every drug trial must account for it by comparing the drug not just to nothing, but to a placebo, because the placebo alone will produce measurable, significant, real physiological change in approximately 1/3 of patients for conditions ranging from pain to depression to Parkinson's disease. A belief, a thought, a story the mind tells about what is happening in the body changes what actually happens in the body. The ancient teachers knew this. Every healing tradition in human history has recognized the role of the mind, the spirit, the consciousness in the process of physical healing. The shamanic traditions of indigenous cultures worldwide work with the spirit of the patient, with the beliefs, the stories, the energetic patterns that underlie the physical symptom. The Ayurvedic tradition of ancient India understands illness as a disturbance in the flow of prana, the vital force that can be addressed through changes in thought, diet, breath, and practice. The traditional Chinese medical system works with the flow of qi through the meridians, recognizing that emotional and mental states directly affect the physical body. All of these traditions understood. What modern science is slowly and reluctantly rediscovering, the body and the mind are not separate. They are two aspects of a single system, and consciousness is not a passenger in that system. It is the driver. This understanding has profound implications for how we understand reality. If consciousness can change the body, and the body is part of the physical world, then consciousness can change the physical world. not in a magical or supernatural sense, but in a direct, measurable, documented sense. The field of psychoneuroimmunology, one of the most exciting frontiers of modern medical research, studies the relationship between psychological states and immune function. And the findings are remarkable. Chronic stress suppresses immune function, measurably reducing the body's ability to fight infection and cancer. Positive emotional states, particularly love, gratitude, and connection, enhance immune function. Social isolation, the experience of being disconnected from others, is as damaging to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. We are not just individual units of consciousness, isolated in separate bodies, competing for resources. We are nodes in a vast web of connection, and the quality of that connection directly affects the physical condition of the body. The ancient teachers describe this using the language of their traditions. They spoke of the heart as the center of consciousness, not the brain. They spoke of love as the fundamental force of the universe, not a mere emotion, but the very substance of which reality is made. The Hermetic tradition described the universe as created by and sustained by love. The Sufi mystics describe God as nothing other than love looking at itself. The Christian mystical tradition, in its deepest expression, said simply, God is love. And the most advanced contemplatives in every tradition, when they described what they encountered in the deepest states of meditation, described not a cold, abstract, impersonal absolute, but something warm, intimate, alive, something that felt like love, infinitely magnified. This is not sentiment. This is not wishful thinking. This is what the most rigorous inner investigators, the people who spent decades in sustained contemplative practice, consistently reported. The ground of reality feels like love. And modern science, through its study of connection, empathy, and the social nature of the human nervous system, is beginning to find the biological substrate of what the mystics described. We are wired for love. We are literally built for connection. And when we live in alignment with that, when we allow the quality of openness and warmth and genuine care to flow through our relationships and our daily experience, we are not just being nice, we are aligning ourselves with the fundamental nature of reality. We are moving with the current rather than against it. Let me offer you one more thing before we close. One more piece of the puzzle that I think is important. The question of what happens after death. I raise this not to be morbid, but because how you answer this question shapes everything else. If you believe that consciousness ends when the body dies, that you are nothing more than a temporary pattern of electrochemical activity that will simply cease when the machine stops running, then everything has a different quality. Life is precious but ultimately meaningless. Love is beautiful but ultimately temporary. The universe is vast but ultimately indifferent. But if the ancient teachers were right, if consciousness is not produced by the brain, but is the ground of which the brain is made, then the death of the brain does not end consciousness. It changes its form. The way the death of a wave does not end the ocean. The research on near-death experiences, the thousands of documented cases of people who have been clinically dead and returned with detailed accounts of experiences during that time. Accounts that have sometimes been independently verified. by things they observed while their brains were not functioning. This research does not prove anything definitively, but it points consistently towards something, toward the possibility that consciousness continues, that what you are does not end, that the awareness looking out through your eyes right now has always been here and will always be here in one form or another. This is not a belief I am asking you to adopt. It is a question I'm inviting you to hold. What if you are not going to die? What if the you that is reading these words, the awareness, the presence, the simple fact of being is not something that was born and will not be something that ends? What would change if you truly knew that? How would you live? How would you love? How would you move through the world? Knowing that what you are is indestructible. These are the questions that the ancient teachers lived inside of. These are the questions that the mystery schools were built around. And these are the questions that this channel will continue to explore, together with you, for as long as we are doing this. Subscribe, because we are only just beginning. There is so much more to uncover, so much more to remember, so much more to recognize. Until next time, be still, rest as what you are, and remember, the reality you are looking for is the reality you are looking from. It was never anywhere else. It will never be anywhere else. It is here. It is now. It is you. There is one more dimension of this conversation that I want to explore with you. A dimension that rarely gets discussed in conversations about reality and consciousness. But that, I think, is essential. The question of why any of this matters. Why does it matter whether consciousness is fundamental or not? Why does it matter whether the quantum physicists and the ancient mystics are saying the same thing? Why does it matter whether you are a wave or an ocean, a separate self or a temporary expression of something infinite? It matters because how you understand what you are determines how you live. It determines what you are afraid of. It determines what you are willing to love. It determines what you are willing to risk, what you are willing to give, what you are willing to let go. Most of the suffering in human life comes from a case of mistaken identity, from believing that you are the wave rather than the ocean, from believing that you are the thought rather than the awareness in which thoughts arise, from believing that you are the character rather than the consciousness wearing the character. When you believe you are the wave, you are terrified of dissolution. You are terrified of loss. You are terrified of death, because dissolution, loss, death are the end of the wave. You spend enormous energy trying to protect the wave, to keep it safe, to keep it intact, to prevent it from returning to the ocean. And in doing so, you miss the ocean. You miss the vast, undivided, indestructible ground that the wave is made of. But when you recognize, even for a moment, that you are the ocean appearing as a wave, everything changes. Loss is still painful, death is still significant, but the terror beneath them, the existential dread that most people carry as a constant background hum of anxiety, that begins to soften. Because what you fundamentally are cannot be lost, cannot be threatened, cannot be diminished. The wave can dissolve, the ocean remains. This is not a belief I am asking you to adopt. This is not a philosophical position to defend. This is an invitation to look at what you actually are, right now, in this moment, before the labels and the memories and the story, before you were given a name, before you learned a language, before you absorbed the beliefs of your culture. What were you? Not who. What? What is the bare fact of your existence, prior to all the content that has been added to it? If you look carefully, if you look past the thoughts about looking, past the concepts about consciousness, past the ideas about reality, you will find something that cannot be described, but that is undeniably present, a simple, open, unlocated awareness. That was here before you learned your name. That will be here after the last thought dissolves. That is not yours, because it cannot be owned. But that you are, in the most fundamental sense of the word. This is what the ancient teachers called enlightenment. Not a special state to be achieved, not a reward for sufficient spiritual effort, but a recognition of what was always already here. The recognition that you have been the ocean all along, and the wave, beautiful and temporary and irreplaceable as it is, was always just the ocean, playing. Subscribe to Sacred Flame, because this exploration is only just beginning. Video by video, layer by layer, we are going to go deeper into what you are and what this reality actually is. Until then, be still, look, and remember, you are not looking for the truth, you are looking from it.